Well, it finally happened. It's official. Warner Brothers Discovery will be split into two different companies starting next year. It was made official this past week. One company is going to be, movies, games, all the stuff that basically makes money for them. Movies, games, film, everything, television, well, not television, streaming, I should say, streaming, movies, all that. Like HBO Max, Warner Brother Pictures, Warner Brother Games, and so on. Stuff that makes profit. That's going to be under the umbrella known as, Warner Brothers. And the reasoning for it is because they want to name it that way for the legacy of over a century of entertainment. So all the major stuff, everything that initially put Warner Brothers on the map back, in the day, and everything back in the day, the movies and everything and all that, it's going to be under that umbrella along with the streaming stuff, along with games and any other stuff that falls into those categories. Well, Discovery is going to be called Discovery Global. And that's going to house all the cable and television stuff from CNN, Discovery. It's going to have TNT, TBS, True TV, you name it. Anything that falls under the WB, originally fell under the WBD umbrella or division for television, under the WBD division for television, that's all going to be Discovery Global. Now, they're already on the verge of finding people to kind of be heads up in higher positions, human resources, CFOs and all that for both new companies that, let's be honest, they're still going to be under the Warner Bros. Discovery banner, but to save face, they're just going to be looked at as two separate entities. Basically they're doing their own thing. They're separate from each other. In other words, like after you watch a show on TNT, like a sports broadcast or an award show, instead of saying, copyright TNT and then saying a Warner Brothers Discovery division, it's going to say copyright TNT, a Discovery Global's division or Discovery Global's, company or whatever. You get the idea. Basically, it's still going to be under the WBD banner, but they're trying to do something, in my opinion, to save face to where, basically when let's say you go see a movie and you watch the end credits or you watch the starting credits, the opening credits, and it says, it says copyright Warner Brothers, it'll say copyright, Warner Brothers, it'll say something like it'll say Warner Brothers Pictures, and then under it, it will say a Warner Brothers company. That's it, or Warner Brothers division. That's how they're making it look like. Again, if you're watching something on TBS or CNN and it ends and then you see the copyright logo, it says copyright CNN, under it, it's going to say a Discovery Global division or company, affiliate, whatever you want to call it. That's how they're making it look. And the obvious question, if you're a wrestling fan, especially AEW, is what does this do for them? What does this do for them when the guy that's going to be running the Discovery Global side of things oversees all the stuff on CNN, True TV, TBS, TNT, Discovery, you name it? What's it going to do for them if he decides, viewership numbers are not good, attendance is not good, I don't like the fact that you're booking these smaller venues, it looks Bush League and all that. What happens? Not saying it will, but what happens if he looks at all of that? Because again, as I've mentioned before when I've talked about this, and I'm sure others have touched upon it as well, when they get the opportunity, they're going to oversee a lot of the shows and programs and licenses they have, and they're going to look at, most importantly, the viewership numbers, the rating numbers and all that, that those shows and those licensed shows and programs and all that, sporting events and all that, sporting leagues, bring in. They're going to look at that and they're going to decide what is more valuable to the Discovery Global side of things and what's not. Basically, they're going to decide what to keep and what to cut. And if AEW doesn't pull its weight, and get out of the I guess you could say fictively, out of the fictive gutter, if you will, of viewership and ratings, they could be one of those assets that the people, this guy at Discovery Global that's going to be running it is going to look at and say, yeah, let's get rid of it. So if I'm AEW, if I'm Tony Khan in AEW, I get my act together, because this could mean, because next year it could mean pretty much the end of being part of the TNT TBS family. Now, I'm not saying they wouldn't be able to find a new housing in the future. I mean, they have the HBO Max deal, and that might be the only outlet. But if they're not careful, they could lose that too, or lose that at the same time. So, if you're an AEW fan or a wrestling fan overall, this does have to concern you. This does have to concern you a bit, because of the fact that, you don't know what the future is going to hold. You have, for example, you have Eric Bischoff coming on the Ariel Helwani show. And basically he's asked the question if he thinks TNA will overtake AEW as number 2 in the world of professional wrestling, sports entertainment. He was asked that, and he said, yeah, he does believe it, and he believes potentially maybe within a year or two it could happen, or something to that effect. He basically feels that it can happen once they get this media rights deal, which one it will be. He could see it potentially happening, but here's why I think he's confident in that, or why he believes that. It feels that's a possibility. Not outright saying it's going to happen, but feeling that the momentum TNA has right now could lead to that potential, that potentiality. Here's why he believes that. Because he pays attention to stories like this. He pays attention to situations like this, like with Warner Brothers and Discovery splitting in two. He pays attention to that. He has experience in television and all that. So having that experience and paying attention and seeing what's going down here, I think what he's saying is that, yeah, he could see TNA going on to be number 2 if AEW doesn't get its act together in the future, because, he sees them potentially, like everybody else, being under that Discovery Global banner. And by being under that banner and under somebody else's watch, if they don't get their act together, he could see AEW losing that television deal, this major deal they have with TNT and TBS. He could see him losing it, and thus that would allow TNA and whatever media rights deal they could have by next year overtaking them. So that's why I think. So I believe that's what he meant, when he said that, on the Ariel Helwani show. And again, remember, he has experience. So, like him or not, he does have a point, or he does have a right to that opinion and that belief. And this is what Tony Khan has to look at. He has to realize, that this person that's going to be running Discovery Global may or may not be cool with what he brings to the table, as far as the product is concerned. And again, this guy and his board, they're going to look. This guy and his board, I should say, and his team, they're going to look at the viewership and ratings of all the shows that are going to fall under the category and all the various networks, and they're going to decide what to keep and they're going to decide what to cut. And if they see that AEW is not in the area they feel it needs to be, based on based on what genre it's a part of, if they don't see it, being where they feel it needs to be, they're going to cut it. They're going to cut it, and I think that's what Eric Bischoff is looking at. He's looking at that possibility. So, yeah, if I'm, and I've talked about this, and I've said this before when I talked about it, if I'm a wrestling fan or an AEW fan, I would keep a close eye on this, because whether you want to admit it or not, this next year will affect the future. May not affect it right away, but it will affect it. So if I'm somebody that's a diehard AEW fan or just an overall casual diehard wrestling fan, I pay attention to this, because this could vastly affect AEW, in the near future. And it could basically make whoever's in charge decide they don't want to renew after the contract's over, or may decide, hey, let's just make it null and void and get rid of AEW right away. Because it's not pulling in the viewership numbers and rating numbers that they said they would. And that this guy and this guy that's running Discovery Global could look at Tony Khan and feel the same way as a lot of people do. Like, this guy's just a liar. He's a fraud. He doesn't know what he's doing. I'm not saying that's what he probably would feel or believe or see. I'm not saying that, but there's that potential. And there's that potential, and you got to remember, this is a business, and sometimes you got to make tough decisions in business, and that's a fact. So, again, if I'm any fans of AEW or any fans of wrestling, period, overall wrestling, I keep an eye on this, because this could vastly affect AEW's future. And it could prove Eric Bischoff right in saying TNA could potentially head to number 2 because of what's going on with AEW and where they're going to be landing as part of this split up between Warner Brothers and Discovery. But let me know what your thoughts are, guys. Comment down below, like the video, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel, share the video. Also, click on the links in the description to find my content elsewhere outside of YouTube, as well as click on the link to my Teespring store at the bottom to find merchandise you can't get anywhere else. But guys, until next time, let me know what your thoughts are on this, and until then, I am out.